In this video, I'll look at an alternate method to get the plants on the landscape in a quicker way. Right now what I've done is to move and rotate and scale and clone some of these into place. And while they are nice looking, I can see I have a lot more plants to do that with, which can be fairly tedious. Instead, I'd like to paint them on. Under my graphite modeling tools, I'll use the object paint and paint them on here. But I need to handle something first in the way the plants think they're oriented. When I select one of my lilies, clicking to cycle the selection if needed, and press Z to zoom extends, we can see that the bounding box on this plant is skewed. It's off, and that's a reflection of how I made it. I started with one leaf, cloned it around, and joined others onto it. And so it reflects the original orientation. What I need to do on these is make them think that they are actually upright here. First, I'm going to reset them to flat, and then reset how big they think they are. I'll press F12 for the transform type in, or down here on the bottom, the X, Y, and Z fields do the same thing. I'll press E for rotate first, and I'll right-click on all the spinners to reset them back to 0. And this is a terrific feature here in Max. Once they're reset, we can see actually which way this plant is facing. I can even pick it and move it up if that's handy. What I'll do with this is make sure that it is actually fairly flat, and I can check in a front view by pressing F or left view by pressing L, and Z afterwards. That looks pretty good. With the plant selected then, what I'll do is go over to the Utilities panel, and under Utilities there's Reset X-Form, the reset the transform of the object. With it selected, I'll click Reset Selected, and now the plant thinks it's facing up to the world. What I'll also do is go to the Hierarchy tab and choose up at the top here, Effect Pivot Only. I'll press W for Move and move where the plant thinks its center is. Now I know we can measure out the bounding box here and say that the center of the plant is in the middle, but this is really, if I rotate the plant, where does it rotate around? So I'll move it down to the base here, and I'll check in a top view as well, pressing T for top and Z to zoom extents. Now this plant not only thinks it is as big as it is, but its center is in the center and on the bottom. I'll show this with one more here. Again, I'll pick this lily. I'm going to pull it up so I can see what I'm doing. Press Z to zoom extents. I'll press E for rotate, and just check its rotation. Looks like if I right-click and zero those out, and then pull back on the X-axis, I can get this plant fairly level. I'll check it in a left, and maybe a front. Looks pretty good. Now on the Utilities panel, I'll reset it, and on the Hierarchy choose Effect Pivot Only, W for Move, and I'm going to pull that pivot down to the base of the plant. I'll check it in a top view, and it looks pretty good. Now I can paint these in. I'll do this with all of my plants, and I can do more of them at once if I'd like. Picking them all, rotating them flat, and resetting their pivots. I purposely left them like this so you could see where objects think they are in relation to where we see them, as this trips many people up when we're starting to place and paint things on an uneven surface. I'll fix my last lily, picking on it, and resetting its transform, making sure I zero out those rotations, making sure that it's nice and flat, zooming in, rotating it in a left or front view, for example, moving it up in the sky. That way I can see it better. Rotating it down, resetting its transform, and moving its pivot. When you're making things, especially things that are going to be cloned like these jungle objects, it's a great idea to think all the way through how will they be used before you use them. That way you're fixing something once instead of a whole bunch of times. I'll take these banana leaf plants and pull them out of the way. Now I'm ready to clone my lilies. What I'll do then is on the graphite toolbar, choose my object paint. I'll drop down the full ribbon here and close that move tri-pin. Okay, here's how this works. What I need to do is first pick what I'm painting. Under Painting, I've got some options in here. What am I painting? Are they in an order or are they random? And I'm going to choose random. I'll click on the Edit Object List button and I can pick different objects. I'm going to pick one of my lilies, hold Control, and pick the others, and choose Add Selected. Ultimately, I can pick them straight from the scene or add from a list. Now I'll choose what I'd like to paint on. I'll pick the terrain and drop down here where it says, what would you like to pick? And I'll pick Selected Objects. I'm ready to paint. I'll get in here, click on the paintbrush, and start to paint. They look a little close, and I can adjust this interactively by playing with the spacing. Right now it's set to 200, and as I crank this up, the plants on the line I painted them space out more. As I pull this way down, we can see we can really make a line of these plants here, or pull it way up and space them out. What I'll also do is randomize which way they think they're facing a bit. In the rotation here, there's X, Y, and Z rotation, and as I spin this, they can rotate one way or another. Here's a Y rotation, for example, and a Z. Z looks pretty good because it spins those plants around. Now I'll play with scale. In this case, what we can do with our scale is randomize them. I'll drop down here and choose Random, and then here's a range for scale. This way I end up with big and small all over. I'll randomize in this case between 50 and 175. Every time we do something, we can see it apply to the objects we've painted, and it's a terrific way interactively to really see how this works. I'm going to bring up that spacing number a little bit more. I'll try 300 so they don't sit on top of each other. Now I'll paint a few more in and see about the next plants. It's very easy now to brush in this jungle. This looks good. I'll click on the checkbox, and when I think I've got it, it'll bake these in. Now these are all simply unique objects. When I pick them, we can see that they are instances of the original, and we can see they have their Reset X form on them. When I get down here and orbit my view, press P for perspective and zoom in, I'm really starting to get that jungle feel going. I can sit among the plants and I see the size variation as I move around. If I need to edit a particular one, let's say pull this guy out of the rock, it's not a big deal. Or maybe press E to rotate and spin it nicely right from this view. It's a terrific way to paint these in. And I'll repeat the steps with my flowers and my other plants, building up my jungle, picking ones to maybe move or take out or alter slightly, and fleshing out how this scene looks.